The year was 2158, and Earth had just begun to make significant strides into the cosmos. Yet, despite the advancements in technology, humanity was still a small player in the grand scheme of the galaxy. The stars were vast and unknowable, filled with alien races far more advanced than humans could ever imagine. But for Dr. Lena Rossi, an astrobiologist aboard humanity's first deep space vessel, the Titaness, the galaxy was about to change forever. Lena had been assigned to a routine expedition to explore an exoplanet in a distant star system. Her mission seemed straightforward: gather data on the planet's atmosphere, climate, and potential for life. But something far beyond her expectations awaited her. As the Titaness cruised toward the planet, Lena's curiosity grew when the ship's sensors detected a strange anomaly deep beneath the planet's surface. The readings were unlike anything they had ever encountered. She wasn't sure what it was, but it wasn't natural. Lena proposed a detour to investigate the source of the anomaly, which was met with resistance from the mission's commander. He wanted to stick to the original plan, but Lena's instinct told her that something important was hidden beneath the planet's crust. After much persuasion, she was granted permission to examine the strange signal. What they uncovered was nothing short of extraordinary. Buried within the planet's core was an ancient alien structure. Its design was unlike anything humans had ever seen, an intricate, metallic labyrinth filled with cryptic symbols. It seemed almost alive. As Lena and her team worked to access the core's deepest chamber, they discovered a hidden device, an alien distress signal that had been transmitting for millennia. The signal was encrypted in a way that no human technology could crack, but after days of effort, Lena managed to decipher a portion of the message. The message spoke of war, a war between two alien factions, the Zaris and the Korvath. The Zaris were described as a peaceful race, struggling to survive against the ancient, powerful Korvath, a species known for their brutal conquest of planets. The Korvath had swept through entire star systems, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. But what shocked Lena was the implication that the war between the two factions was only a small piece of a much larger puzzle. There was something even more dangerous lurking beyond the war, something that could shift the balance of power in the entire galaxy. As Lena worked tirelessly to decipher the rest of the message, she began to piece together the true nature of the technology the message referenced. According to the signal, an ancient weapon of unimaginable power had been hidden somewhere in the universe, a weapon that could either wipe out entire civilizations or give its wielder dominion over the stars. And, most chilling of all, the signal hinted that this weapon was located somewhere within Earth's solar system, possibly even on the moon. It was hard to believe, but the implications were undeniable. The technology was right under their noses. But before Lena could share her discovery with the rest of her team, something unexpected happened. As the Titaness prepared to leave the planet and head back to Earth, the ship's sensors detected several alien ships entering the solar system. These were no ordinary ships. They were sleek, advanced, and radiated an air of supreme confidence. It didn't take long for the Titaness's crew to realize that these ships belonged to the Korvath, the very conquerors whose war against the Zaris had been mentioned in the message. The Korvath ships moved into Earth's orbit with frightening speed, their presence a clear indication that they knew the humans had found something important. Lena and her crew were paralyzed with fear. They had never been prepared for an encounter with such a powerful and hostile force. The Korvath did not speak through radio or communication channels. Instead, they simply broadcast a chilling message directly to the crew of the Titaness, their tone filled with mockery. "You think you can challenge the galaxy's might?" The alien voice boomed. "Your species is a joke. You are nothing but an insignificant speck, a fleeting memory in the grand design of the universe. But go ahead, try. We'll watch as you play your little games." The message was designed to humiliate humanity. The Korvath saw Earth's attempts at interstellar exploration as nothing more than a child's first steps into the dark. Humanity was nothing compared to their power. And yet, beneath their laughter and mockery, there was a hidden truth, something Lena couldn't shake. The message from the alien ship warned, a force greater than the Korvath, hidden in plain sight. Unleash it or be wiped from the stars. Lena's mind raced. What did it mean? The Korvath's arrogance seemed to suggest that they already knew the truth, that they knew what the Titaness had uncovered. But the hidden message in the signal had given Lena and her team one last thread of hope. Whatever this mysterious force was, humanity had to find it fast if they stood any chance against the alien invasion. But who could they trust in such a volatile moment? Who would be the allies, and who would betray them? The message had set off a chain of events that would lead to a confrontation that no one could have predicted. Lena's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the Korvath ships in Earth's orbit. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. The question was no longer if they could fight back, but how they could survive the unimaginable forces now at play. They had underestimated the galaxy before, but now they would have to show they were far more than just a joke. The battle for survival was only just beginning. The Titanese floated in the cold, silent expanse of space, surrounded by the vast blackness of the unknown. But inside the ship, the atmosphere was anything but quiet. Tension had spread among the crew like wildfire. It had only been a few days since the Korvath ships appeared in Earth's orbit, mocking humanity's place in the galaxy. Dr. Lena Rossi had tried to keep her crew focused, but the reality of the situation was sinking in. The message from the Korvath had been clear: humanity was nothing compared to their power. But that wasn't what kept Lena awake at night. What haunted her thoughts were the implications of the discovery they'd made: the alien technology, the weapon hidden somewhere in the solar system, and the cryptic warning to unleash it or be wiped from the stars. But the more she thought about it, the more disturbing the situation became. The Korvath may have been the conquerors in the galaxy, but what if they had created the very technology that could save or destroy humanity? Lena shared her findings with the crew. The more they discussed it, the more the mission divided. Some saw the technology as a weapon to fight back against the Korvath. Others, however, were uneasy about using it, seeing the potential for it to corrupt humanity just as it had corrupted the Korvath. Could they really trust this power, knowing its origins? The tension between the crew members was growing. Captain Miller, the Titaness's commanding officer, believed that surrendering the technology to the aliens in exchange for peace was their best option. The Korvath were too powerful, and the thought of facing them head-on seemed like suicide. But Dr. Rossi disagreed. To her, handing over the technology would be giving up humanity's future. They couldn't let the Korvath or anyone else control their fate. "The Korvath don't understand us," Lena argued one night in the ship's command center, her voice steady but passionate. "They think of us as a joke, as nothing more than a brief blip in the galaxy. But we've fought too hard to get here. We have the chance to change the game. We can't just roll over." Captain Miller's expression was unreadable. "You don't understand, Dr. Rossi. If we use that technology, we may win the battle, but we'll lose ourselves in the process. We could become just like the Korvath. And if we don't hand it over, Earth is finished. We're talking about the survival of humanity." The conversations that followed only deepened the divide. Crew members began to form factions. Some supported Lena's stance, believing humanity could rise to the challenge. Others sided with Miller, seeing surrender as the only path to survival. But no one had any real answers. Everyone was guessing. The stakes were too high, and no one knew what would happen if they unleashed the technology. Would it save them or doom them? It was then that Lena discovered something even more unsettling. Late one evening, while reviewing the data they had gathered from the alien message, Lena uncovered a set of coordinates hidden in the transmission. The coordinates pointed to a place deep within the Korvath Empire, a location that had been deliberately omitted from the previous transmissions. When Lena cross-checked the data, she realized with a shock that the Korvath might have been the original creators of the technology after all. Her mind raced. If the Korvath had built the weapon, was it truly meant for defense, or had it been designed to conquer? Had the Korvath always intended to control the galaxy through the weapon's power? What kind of civilization would create something so dangerous? And why had the Korvath hidden it in the first place? Was it a secret, or had they lost control of it long ago? As the questions swirled in Lena's mind, she found herself facing a moral dilemma. Could humanity use this weapon, knowing it was a creation of the very aliens they were trying to defeat? Was there a way to wield such power without becoming like the Korvath? The technology had the potential to shift the balance of the galaxy. But Lena could no longer ignore the truth. It could also lead to humanity's downfall. One night, as Lena sat alone in her quarters, staring out at the stars, she was suddenly struck by a vision. It wasn't a dream, but a strange, vivid experience. She saw the vast, cold expanse of space, and in the distance, a massive alien structure, a weapon far beyond human comprehension. It was then that a voice whispered to her, the words both familiar and alien. "You cannot escape it. The weapon is not just power. It is a force of fate. To wield it is to be consumed by it." Lena snapped back to reality, her heart pounding in her chest. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the eerie vision. But the words lingered. The universe was far more interconnected than she had ever imagined. The technology they had uncovered was more than just a tool. It was a key to something far greater. But what did that key unlock? And what price would humanity have to pay to use it? The next morning, Lena tried to clear her head, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play. The alien technology was pulling at her, almost as if it had a will of its own. She began to question everything: the Korvath, the Zaris, and even the history of the galaxy itself. The lines between right and wrong were blurring, and Lena felt like she was standing on the edge of a precipice, unsure whether to step forward or retreat. As if to complicate matters further, a new conflict had begun to brew on Earth. A secret faction of humans led by a group of politicians and military leaders had formed an alliance with the Korvath. They believed that surrendering to the Korvath and utilizing the alien technology would ensure Earth's survival. This faction saw the Korvath not as invaders, but as potential allies. They believed that the Korvath could help Earth establish its own power in the galaxy, and that the technology was a necessary tool to achieve that. This political alliance only added to the complexity of Lena's situation. The Titaness had been sent to defend Earth, but now the mission was no longer about simple survival. It was about deciding which path humanity would take. Would they fight for independence and use the alien technology as a weapon? Or would they submit to the Korvath and risk becoming part of their empire? The consequences of either choice were catastrophic. Lena's mind was spinning. The visions, the secrets, and the choices were becoming too much to bear. She began to realize that the true battle was not just one of physical survival. It was a battle of ideas, a battle for the soul of humanity. Could they resist the temptation of ultimate power without losing themselves? Would they remain human, or would they be consumed by the very force they sought to control? With every passing moment, Lena knew the stakes were rising. And as the Korvath continued to circle Earth, their laughter echoing in the depths of space, one thing was clear: whatever path humanity chose, it would change everything. The Titanies had left Earth, but the tension among its crew had never been higher. The alien attack on Earth had been swift and merciless. The Korvath and their allies, the Zaras, had launched a brutal assault, crippling humanity's ability to defend itself. What was once a hopeful mission to save Earth had now turned into a desperate retreat. The Titaness was forced to abandon its home planet, leaving behind the remains of what could have been a new era of interstellar unity. Lena stood in the command center, staring at the holographic map of space. The stars stretched out in every direction, but for the first time, they felt empty, devoid of meaning. Her heart ached for Earth, for the people she had left behind. But there was no turning back now. The Titaness was heading deeper into the unknown, away from the destruction. The only question now was whether humanity would survive what came next. As the ship cruised deeper into space, Lena's mind couldn't shake the sense that everything she thought she knew had been wrong. The technology they had discovered, the weapon hidden beneath the surface of the planet, was far more than anyone had ever realized. It was not just a weapon, it was something far older, far more powerful, and far more dangerous than anything the crew could have imagined. Lena had spent hours poring over the encrypted message, trying to understand the origins of the weapon. She had assumed, like everyone else, that the Korvath had created it. But something didn't sit right. The more she examined the data, the more she realized that the Korvath were not the creators. The truth was far more shocking. The weapon had been created by an ancient, now extinct race, the Idrak. A race so advanced that they could manipulate the very fabric of the universe itself. They had designed the weapon not to destroy, but to alter the cosmos. It was a self-replicating device that, once activated, could reshape the fundamental laws of existence. It had the potential to change time, space, and matter. It could undo the very fabric of reality, creating a new universe, or perhaps even destroying everything that existed. The Idrak had built the weapon as a last resort, a tool to be used only in the most extreme of circumstances. They had encoded it with a failsafe. It could only be activated by someone who truly understood its purpose and who was willing to bear the consequences of its activation. The weapon was a force of creation and destruction, capable of both unimaginable good and unspeakable evil. But one thing was certain: once it was unleashed, there was no turning back. Lena's stomach turned as she absorbed the enormity of the discovery. The fate of the entire galaxy rested on her shoulders. She now realized that the Korvath and the Zaras were not the true enemies. The weapon itself was the enemy, and activating it, it could lead to a cosmic imbalance that would threaten all life in the galaxy. It was no longer just about defeating the Korvath or the Zaras. It was about choosing whether to destroy the weapon or to allow it to be triggered, hoping that humanity could somehow control its power before it was too late. The pressure weighed heavily on Lena. The weapon was a cosmic force of incredible power, but it was also an unimaginable risk. She knew that her crew would never be able to master it in time. The technology was beyond human comprehension. Yet, in a strange twist of fate, Lena had become the key to understanding it. The message, the visions, the strange connection she felt to the weapon, it all pointed to one thing: she was the one who had to decide. But the decision was not just intellectual, it was emotional. Lena had become attached to the crew aboard the Titaness. Many of them had become like family to her. They had fought side by side, endured countless trials together, and now their fate rested on her shoulders. Could she risk their lives? Could she risk everything they had fought for? In the quiet hours, when the ship's hum was the only sound, Lena would find herself sitting alone, staring at the stars. The weight of the universe pressed down on her, and she wondered if she was strong enough to carry it. She had always believed that humanity's strength lay in its ability to choose. But now, with the fate of the galaxy at stake, she found herself questioning everything. Was humanity truly ready to wield such power? Could they control a weapon so destructive, or would it consume them, just as it had the Idrak? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, shocking revelation. As Lena pieced together the fragments of information she had uncovered, she realized something that would change everything. The Zaris were not as they seemed. The peaceful, benevolent race that had been fighting against the Korvath for centuries was not what it appeared to be. In fact, the Zaris had been manipulating weaker civilizations all along. The war with the Korvath had been a carefully crafted distraction, a way to prepare humanity for the final step of their plan. The Zaris had been using Earth as a tool to unlock the weapon and set the galaxy on a new course under their control. They had been using humanity, all along, as pawns in a game that no one had fully understood. The revelation hit Lena like a thunderclap. She had believed that the Zaras were the victims in the galactic war, that they were fighting for survival. But in truth, they were playing a much deeper game, one that involved manipulating humanity into activating the weapon that could reshape the galaxy. With this new knowledge, Lena felt a deep sense of betrayal. The Zaras had been lying to her crew, to all of humanity. They had been using them for their own purposes, all along. Lena could no longer trust them. But now, more than ever, she had to make a choice. Should she destroy the weapon to stop the Zaras from using it for their own gain? Or should she allow it to be triggered, hoping that humanity could somehow control it? As Lena stood before the control panel in the Titaness's heart, she realized that the decision she was about to make would determine not only her own fate, but the fate of the entire galaxy. The weapon was a force of unimaginable power, but it was also a force of unimaginable destruction. Could humanity survive the consequences of activating it, or would it be their undoing? Her heart pounded as she made her way to the control panel. She knew that whatever decision she made, it would change everything. The Titaness glided silently toward the edge of the dying star. Its faint glow illuminated the vast emptiness of space, casting an eerie light over the desolate surroundings. The ancient weapon was located here, hidden within the remnants of a shattered planet, lost for millennia. This was the final destination, the moment that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. Lena stood in the command center, her fingers trembling slightly as she gripped the edge of the control panel. She had made it this far, but now the truth of the situation weighed heavier on her than ever. She knew what needed to be done, but the decision felt like a cruel paradox. There was no clean path forward. The Zarus and Korvath fleets had already merged into one massive force. They were only hours away from reaching the Titanus and wiping out humanity's last hope. The crew's morale had reached its breaking point. Some of them were on the verge of losing faith. Lena had no illusions about the choices she faced now. She glanced out at the stars, her mind running through the alternatives. She had the weapon, the power to destroy their enemies, to obliterate the Zaris and Korvath fleets was within her grasp. But the cost was immense. Activating the weapon would not only obliterate the alien forces, it would reshape the very laws of the universe. The balance of space and time, of reality itself, would be irrevocably altered. There was no telling what would happen once the weapon was unleashed. Lena had spent so many sleepless nights trying to figure out the right course of action. She had analyzed the data, questioned the motivations of the Zaris, and considered the ramifications of everything. But there was no simple answer. The weapon was both a salvation and a destruction. Could she take the risk of activating it, knowing the galaxy would never be the same? Or would she choose to destroy it, knowing the alien fleets would wipe out humanity? Her crew watched her, their eyes full of uncertainty. Some of them had already made their peace with the fact that they might not survive, while others believed in the potential of the weapon to save them all. But Lena knew the truth. There was no way back from this moment. No matter what she chose, the future would be forged in the flames of a decision she had to make alone. The weight of her decision felt unbearable. Could she really risk everything? Could she risk the future of humanity itself on the hope that they could control such power? Or was it too much to handle? She thought of the crew, her friends, her family who had stood by her throughout this entire journey. Could they handle the consequences of activating a force so dangerous? Would humanity ever be able to thrive again if it was forced to live in a universe that had been rewritten by such destructive power? At that moment, Lena heard the voice of Captain Blake, her trusted friend and mentor, over the comms. "Lena, we need a decision. The fleet is coming. Whatever we do it now." There was no more time to think. No more time to second guess. Lena took a deep breath. Her fingers hovered over the activation switch. She knew what she had to do. Humanity had fought for this moment, had bled for this chance. The Zaris had manipulated them, used them as pawns. The Korvath had come to destroy them. But now, for the first time in a long time, humanity had the power to control its fate. She wouldn't let them die without a chance. With a swift motion, Lena activated the weapon. A blinding light erupted from the center of the dying star. Energy, light, and raw cosmic force poured out, sweeping across the stars and galaxies. The shockwaves spread out like a wave through space, bending the very fabric of reality as it passed. Lena watched, heart pounding, as the Korvath and Zaris fleets were obliterated in an instant. The space around them fractured, space-time itself unraveling as the power of the weapon tore through the galaxy.